We can't take our eye off the ball, not for one moment. And this year's success with our candidates and turnout builds momentum for next year and the year after. Our US Senate seat next year is up. Congressional seats and the state House and Senate are within our grasp. Our speaker will tell us how the work we're doing now will help us win in the future and what we shall face if the Republicans win majorities. Looking ahead, a governor's race, the county commissioner's race, electing Democrats will allow us to build the county, state, and country that works for all of us. We must fight off this right-wing movement that Trump emboldened. We can't let them take control. Too much is at stake. All of us need to give that extra day, those extra few hours this year to increase voter turnout in our communities in the years to come. We all need to stay in touch with voters, especially the newly registered voters, so that they keep voting every year. Increasing turnout should be a community goal. You know the saying, there are no off years anymore. I hope 4 years of Trump convinced us all of that. I know we can win this year and in the future because I know how hard all of you work. And I know that next year's award recipients are just waiting to show what they're made of. I'd like now to introduce Lauren Schlesser, who is our Events Committee Chair. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We have a really great program for you today. I'm really excited to hear Brian talk, but before I introduce him to everyone, I just wanted to take a moment to highlight several other individuals who were nominated as part of the nominating process when we were looking to select awardees for our program today. So I'm sure that all of you saw the slides ahead of time that had some things about them, but I just want to name them. Chet Stewart, Judy Donnelly, Jen Porter, and Dana Hamp-Gulick are all local Democrats who have contributed a lot over the span of time that they've been involved with us, and wanted to make special recognition of those individuals. Now I would like to introduce Brian to you. Brian Derrick is a New York-based political consultant and finance professional. He has managed campaigns and raised funds for candidates from city council to president of the United States, with a particular focus on momentum building in battleground districts and counties. In addition, he has grown an online following for his political analysis and whiteboard breakdowns of electoral and governance issues. So I'm going to introduce Brian now. I just want to let you know, as he's talking to us today, if you have any questions that you would like to submit, we are going to have a question and answer session at the end of this program. And so down at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little Q&A icon. If you click on that, a little box will come up and you can type your questions in there. And then at the end of the program, we will have a separate section for that. But if, as you're listening to Brian speak, you have thoughts or things that you'd like him to tell a little bit more about, you can drop those in there. So now I would like to welcome Brian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Hello, everyone. Hi, friends. I'm really excited to be here to chat with you all today. As Lauren said, my name is Brian. I am a campaigner. I have worked as finance director, campaign manager for campaigns for the last several years. Before that, doing nonprofit fundraising. And I'm super excited to be here. I'm not planning to tell you all about Lancaster County because you know it better than I do. You know your neighbors, you know your issues. and how to talk to your neighbors. What I do hope that I can do today is talk about how important the work that you're doing is, how it fits into the overall political landscape that we're seeing right now, and also maybe some ways that we can sort of work together and learn from other parties, other entities and campaigns to make the work even more efficient and more effective. So to give a little bit of a overview here, I want to first talk about the power of local organizing. So normally what I'm doing on Instagram or when I'm giving some kind of talk is to convince people to get involved locally. That's like the big hurdle, is to take someone who's really motivated by federal issues often or national politics and get them to care about what's happening at the local level around them. But you all already are doing that if you're on this Zoom. So the big ask, the big hurdle is already checked off, which is fantastic. And so I think that to talk a little bit about the landscape around this committee is that after 2016, we saw a huge influx of people being motivated to be involved in politics. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. Maybe even some people on this call were motivated after the 2016 election to join. But what I think we're at a point now is we're seeing a backlash to the results from that huge wave of populist movement into the political space. And so we saw the House flip in 2018, we saw the White House and Senate flip in 2020, and now we have Republicans at the state level introducing more than 360 bills in 47 states that would make it harder to vote. And so I have to make that kind of the opening here, is that is the reality of what we're operating within, and to contextualize the activism and campaigning that we're doing in that space, that is currently our opponent's strategy, is to make it as hard for people to vote as possible in as many places as possible. And so I've been doing a lot of videos and breakdowns of what those bills look like, from New Hampshire, where they're attacking students' access to the ballot, to Arizona, where a bill would require absentee ballots to be notarized, to Texas and Florida's omnibus bills that would roll back all kinds of early voting and mail ballot access. And so contextualizing what we're doing, I think, is important, because that is what is motivating a whole new generation of activists that are being animated by the idea that an entire party's strategy is to silence the voice of the people. And so obviously we are here to fight against that. We are here to elect as many Democrats as possible, both now and in the future. And I think that especially organizing in a county such as yours, I think it's important to contextualize both of those goals. So I wanted to do that with the example of Georgia, because I think everyone's familiar with what's happening in Georgia, and it creates an easy place to start. And so thinking first about the long term, I wanted to use the example of two different women and their activism and politics, I should say, as a roadmap for what we could be talking about in Pennsylvania as well. Stacey Abrams, a household name now, synonymous with fighting for access to the right to vote, is a critical figure in Georgia, not just since her 2018 run for governor, which I think made her a household name, but since way before that, in 2014, when she first ran for the state legislature and became a primary voice in the state party, really transformed how we saw politics and our goals on the left in Georgia. She said from the very beginning that Georgia could be a blue state, that it was possible, but that we couldn't leave anybody out of the equation. And we needed to be reaching out, knocking on every door and reaching out to everyone to make sure that we were bringing people in, even from places that were at the time, quote unquote, unwinnable. And so taking Stacey's example, I also was hoping to do a whiteboard for you all, but I realized that it will appear backwards on Zoom. Technical difficulties here, and I couldn't draw it backwards. But just looking at the numbers, I think the important thing to take away from it is that 2008, 2010, under Barack Obama's first term as president, Georgia was consistently red. A Democrat had not won statewide election in about 11 years, and there was 5.7 million people registered to vote in Georgia. In 2014, Stacey Abrams founds the New Georgia Project, specifically reaching out to communities that had basically been left behind by the entire process and the focus of Democrats' efforts in Georgia. And then also importantly, in 2016, the DMV makes changes to the voter registration process. And then every year, every cycle, 2014, 16, 18, and 20, between 600,000 and 1 million people are added to the voter rolls. This is what brought us the wave, the blue wave that we saw in Georgia in 2020, flipping the state for Joe Biden by 12,000 votes. I think that the lessons that we can take away from Stacey are, as I said, that you can't leave anybody out, and that we need to pull people in, even if that district, that county isn't likely to be flipped this cycle or next cycle. We need these entities and organizations to be focused on bringing people into the political process. The second example that I want to use here is more short term. So even if we're not talking about a 10-year plan to flip a county or to flip a state, there are immediate effects that are really beneficial of local organizing in places like Lancaster County as well. If you're familiar with the organization Run for Something, they conducted a study that showed in 2020, down ballot candidates, local candidates, and candidates for the state legislature improved Democrats' performance and brought out votes for Joe Biden in a reverse coattails effect. I think that oftentimes we hear about coattails having a strong candidate at the top of the ticket, helping win down ballot races. But the data shows in 2020, the reverse was true. And so in places where a Democrat was running for local office, you saw a 0.3 to 1.5% bump over places that had a Republican running uncontested. And I think that it shouldn't be all that surprising, because local entities, local campaigns are the best campaigners. They know the political and cultural landscape of the place that they are campaigning in a way that a national campaign can't just come swoop in with a bunch of staffers and knock doors and have that same kind of impact. And so what I want to take away from this example, but in Georgia, what we saw was a woman named Ebony Carter, who ran in a deeply red state legislative district. No Democrat had won in generations, and was able to boost turnout. She lost the race in 2020. It wasn't even close. But she ran a really great campaign and connected with people that otherwise would not have voted and turned them out to vote in a county where Biden was able to pick up 6 points over Hillary Clinton's performance. And so Ebony running for that seat brought new people to the table, new voices out to vote. Even though she lost, she contributed to that 12,000 vote margin that flipped Georgia for Biden. And so overall, thinking about how we're doing this local organizing, we have to think both in the short term, how can we bring more people in right now, because it's going to have a real impact, and in the long term. I crunched some numbers, and in Pennsylvania, if we had run a Democrat against every Republican, so there were if we did not allow any Republicans to run uncontested for the state legislature, that could, given the 2020 study, amount to as much as a 17 or 18,000 vote bump in turnout for the state. And as was mentioned at the top of the call, with really competitive gubernatorial and Senate races coming up, that's a big deal. Donald Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016 by 44,000 votes, Joe Biden by 80,000 in 2020. And so in potentially right now, the most critical state, I would say, in the nation for Democrats, it's a huge plus to be able to run those local candidates and have really effective organizers like you all to be able to turn out the vote in that way. So I also just wanted to move into a little bit of a conversation about how we can best do that work and connect with people at the local level. And so I think two ways that are pretty universal that Democrats have, I think, a lot of work to do on are data and technology, as well as service. And so in the data and technology category, Republicans have a serious leg up on us because they started their data sharing operation years before Democrats did. And so what I'm talking about here is local entities, local state committees or party committees, as well as the nonprofit organizations, voter registration, that focus on voter registration, being able to feed their data into a centralized way, to be able to keep an updated role of who we are connecting with, how they're responding to our messaging, and how we can engage them in the future. And so Republicans have been able to do this really effectively, and I think that we still have a long way to go. But using tools like Vote Builder and NGP are critical ways for us to be able to share that data in a way that is going to transform how we communicate with voters and potential voters. On the tech side, there are tools after tools being developed and created for Democrats to use as we are doing this kind of organizing work. One that you might be familiar already with, like Mobilize, where we host a lot of campaigns, host events. I already mentioned Vote Builder and NGP being, yes, absolutely, Vote Builder, it's really critical. But two others that I wanted to highlight were Reach and Outvote. So Reach is a tool that was developed by the person who ran AOC's 2018 digital operation, which was pretty revolutionary at the time. And basically, it is a tool that will allow anyone to check their contact list against the voter registration rolls and find the people that they know who are registered to vote, and then contact them and track that outreach. That's what we call relational organizing. And so I'm sure lots of people on this call are already familiar with the idea, but relational organizing studies show it's the most effective way to turn people out to vote, can boost turnout by up to 8% compared to 3 to 4% for phone banking, text banking, postcarding. And so this tool is really transforming the way that campaigns are able to reach people by making everyone who supports the candidate an organizer. Just by downloading an app on your phone, you can identify and connect directly with voters who the campaigns have struggled, maybe on their third, fourth, fifth pass through their universe, have struggled to be able to contact. Especially as norms around phones change, people don't answer unknown numbers anymore. People don't really respond to generic text messages that often. Relational organizing is a tool for the future. And the other platform that I wanted to recommend here is Outvote. And so Outvote has a similar idea behind it, and you're also able to do that contact to voter rolls matching. And it also builds out more of the phone banking, text banking infrastructure within the app to allow you to really like host events where you can do a friend bank and get all of your volunteers to connect with their contacts who are your target voters in a really organized and strategic way. And then the second tool here that I wanted to talk about is community service. So last year's campaign cycle was really unrecognizable for a lot of campaigners. I was at the time working for Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, who flipped her district in 2018. And going all virtual, most states never had anyone knock on their door from the Democratic Party, was a huge challenge in districts like that. And I think that we saw campaigns fill a void that maybe wasn't quite so established in the past. And I wanted to sort of highlight this through one example. Ricky Hurtado, a candidate for the state legislature in North Carolina, a really tremendous candidate, raised over $1 million for a state legislative seat and flipped a district running against a popular incumbent Republican. Because he was so ingrained in the community and was really centering community service in everything that they did. And so because the pandemic affected everyone so differently, we weren't able to do the door knocking, we weren't able to do in-person events and rallies. I think that a lot of campaigns shifted into this community service mentality because they already had the infrastructure set up. They were connected to the local elected officials. They already had the ability to contact massive amounts of people very quickly. And they were tapped into the needs of what people really needed at the time. And so I think when you look at how campaigns like State Senator Hurtado's and how they operated, it really transformed how people saw politics and organizing and campaigning, because instead of someone appearing to ask for money, ask for your support, and ask for your vote, they were there to deliver a service and to deliver what was needed in the community and mutual aid. And I think that consistent presence in the community and the ability for people to be seen and heard in that way was a totally transformational campaign tool that a lot of people relied on in 2020. I don't want to sound cynical here. Of course, they were doing it because it was a global pandemic and people were struggling and they wanted to help them. And that is good. And that is what they should be doing. But I do think that it's important for us also to look at the impact that had on the community and the relationship between these campaigns and their local communities and learn from that. Because I do think that attracted a lot more people who maybe were not open to the activities that you all do that we know are so important, like phone banking, canvassing, that kind of thing. Maybe those volunteers weren't open to that, but you can bring on a lot more people and open a lot of doors to have new conversations by hosting a community cleanup, which is really popular in New York right now. After cutting the sanitation budget, a lot of city council candidates have asked their neighbors to come help clean up trash on streets that have kind of been forgotten, doing grocery deliveries, PPE handouts. Those types of community service events can be a place for people to see the power of local politics, to see the power of local organizing, and to just form a relationship. We know that this kind of campaigning and even like getting to get out the vote efforts really come down to relationships and feeling a connection to people. And I think that that's a really positive evolution in this campaign world for us to be centering being of service, to form those connections and to remind people why we're all doing this to begin with. And so I know that the work that you all do is incredibly important. It's as important as it is exhausting. And I know a lot of people are still sort of recovering from the 2020 nonstop election cycle, followed by the insurrection, which was emotionally and just frightening for everyone. But the work that you're doing now and for the next 3 weeks, in particular, is so critical to each of these pieces, to setting up a long-term plan that will be able to win more seats, more offices, and to put people in a position where they can show what running for office as a Democrat is all about, and that's being of service. And so I'm super excited to be here. I'm grateful for all of your continued efforts working in Pennsylvania, which, as I said, is truly where my political heart is, and I'm so proud to be able to speak with you today. And I'm super excited to get to your questions in just a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Brian. I loved listening to you talk. I personally am really passionate about building relationships, so it's exciting to listen to you talk about the resources that are out there to help us sort of maintain information and build relationships on a more personal level. As a reminder to everyone, there is going to be a question and answer session at the end, as Brian mentioned. At the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A icon that you can click on. It'll open up a box and you can add a question in there. We do have one so far, but I'd like to get a couple more. And then if you want to hang on at the end, we'll bring Brian back to cover those things. So we're going to transition now to the next part of our program, which is the award ceremony. And so I'm going to turn it over to our co-vice chair, Mary Auker-Enders, to introduce our first recipient.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I am very excited to award one of my dear friends. So I'm going to read his biography first, and then I'm going to talk about how wonderful he is. So his biography states, DJ Ramsay is a designer and communication consultant who works with governments, political campaigns, and nonprofits to motivate people to do something good. He's been involved in politics and social action for more than a decade and has become involved with LCDC first as a committee person in early 2017. He's worked on campaigns at all levels and currently serves as LCDC's Communications Committee Chair. A graduate of Millersville University, DJ lives in Lancaster City and can often be found spending Friday nights at Dipco having passionate discussions about typefaces, and that is not a joke. So I have known DJ since around 2017, maybe a little bit before that, and have gotten to know him very well. And he very much deserves this wonderful Democrat of the Year award that he's being awarded today. Here at LCDC, when he says he's the Communications Committee Chair, what that actually means is he does an enormous amount of work for all of us. So DJ manages almost all of our Zooms, all of our webinars, including today where he's being honored. He created some updated branding for the party that you have been seeing the last year or so that is really modern and consistent and professional. He works pro bono for local candidates all over the county to help them set up their websites and get their literature together, get their door hangers together. If you've seen a really nice piece of literature in your neighborhood recently, it was designed by DJ in all likelihood. He also manages all of our social accounts, and he does much, much, much more. Last year, particularly in a year when everything went digital of necessity, DJ caught a lot of responsibility here in the party with both hands. And not only did he keep us going in 2020, he really kept us growing. So we were able to really move a lot of things forward, even in a year where a lot of other organizations kind of stalled out because of the pandemic. I know that DJ cares really deeply about our shared values, and he cares a lot about his neighbors, and that's why he does what he does. So I'm beyond honored to introduce one of my dearest friends and truly the Swiss Army knife of the Lancaster Democratic Committee, DJ Ramsay.
Thank you for that, Mary. Really don't know how to follow up with that. I do the work because I genuinely care about our community and know that the easiest or the most impactful way we can make lasting change is to do it through politics and electing the leaders who represent all of us. So thank you all, and we'll keep moving on for the next election. 3 weeks, we can do this, everybody. And I believe we're going to go to Diane next.
That's right. Hold on. Okay. That was great, Mary and DJ. So I am very, very pleased to be introducing this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. Sam Mecum is and has been a longtime friend to LCDC. When I was reading his bio recently, it looked like he's been active in Democratic politics at least since 1976, when he ran and won as a delegate for Jimmy Carter and attended the Democratic convention that year. He then went on to become a Manheim Township committee person in 1978. And that's when he started volunteering his services and his skills to LCDC. As a notary, Sam has worked every notary night that we have in the underground to help our candidates get their petitions notarized so that they can get on the ballot. As an attorney, he represented many Democratic candidates pro bono, of course, in court cases related to their petitions over the years. He has worked to change and draft our bylaws for LCDC whenever he has been asked. And you know what an exciting task that is. And more recently, he was asked to be the parliamentarian for our yearly endorsement conventions. Sam finally ran for office himself in 2013 and was the first ever Democrat to win election as a Manheim Township commissioner. What a night of celebration that was. I remember it well. He ran for re-election in 2017, and he won that with the highest vote total in recorded history. Every election day, Sam is a phone call away, helping out with problems all around the county. This past year, he served along with Greg Paulson and Sharon Cody locally on the State Democratic Party Election Protection Task Force. A lot of work went into that. A lot of Zoom calls were had, a lot of in-person visits to the Board of Election, all before Election Day. But I personally slept better at night knowing that Sam was on that team. Sam is a guy who's very active in his community and his church. He has made community service his life's work. He has been lucky to have his wife, Deborah, by his side, volunteering for the party together. Thank you, Deborah. And I have no doubt that they have raised their two sons to follow in their footsteps. And I have no further doubt that they are raising their two grandchildren to do the same. Sam, an attorney for Apple, Yost, and Z, has a very active professional life and volunteer life, but we appreciate that he plays on our team. So congratulations, Sam Mecum, and thank you so very, very much.
I get to talk now.
You do.
First of all, well, you all may know I'm a trivia buff, and I have several trivia answers that I want to throw out to you. What do Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Sam Mecum have all in common? The answer to that is we're all born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. A coincidence? I think not. I like to say that, first of all, before I forget, I want to say that I am honored and humbled to be mentioned in the same sentence with the name Rita Smith Wade L., for whom this award is named. She and I, roughly speaking, were contemporaries in terms of time. We knew people who taught at Millersville University in the day, one of whom was someone by the name of Terry Madonna, who I'm sure most of you know. I like to say that in 1969, it was Richard Nixon who made me a Democrat. He promised during the 1968 campaign he had a plan to end the war in Vietnam, and it became clear less than a year later that he had no such plan. So I and a bunch of fraternity brothers from Penn State, in fact, made a trip to Washington, D.C., marching around the White House in October of 1969, which was only 1 month before a number of other demonstrators were arrested en masse by Richard Nixon's Attorney General John Mitchell. In any case, 1974, I was involved with a campaign for my then law school roommate and law partner, Mike Minnie. I had a 1971 Mustang with 2 bumper stickers on it, one of which said "Impeachment with Honor," referring to Nixon, and the other one said "One of the many for Minnie." In 1975, I had the honor of representing Ron Ford in a court case where his paper ballots were challenged in his first run for city council. After the smoke cleared, he had the same number of votes based on the challenges back and forth as his Republican opponent did, and Ron Ford ended up drawing a lower numbered dice cube out of a little leather bag, and that was how he became the city council person the first time around. Of course, beyond that, he became a county commissioner and actually was involved with the Mecum for Judge campaign, which is a whole other thing. I did actually run for several other things before Mecum Township Board of Commissioners. In any case, it's been a long, strange trip over the years to have associated with memorable and legendary people such as John Pittenger, the late H. Clay Burkholder, Terry Madonna, Jim Steger. If I start naming names, I'll leave people out. You know, Bruce Beardsley and Paul and Joanne Hentz, et cetera. And, but I want to make note of the fact that the party is in the good hands of an exciting group of young folks, such as DJ Ramsay, Mary Walker Enders, Ismail Smith Wade L., Lauren Schlesser, Carl Feldman, and of course, Courtney Morton, and a host of other people whose names I should mention, but will run out of time in doing so. The fact that I'm getting this award does not mean that you have seen the last of me. Debbie and I are still working as committee people here in Manheim Township. I am in my 8th year now on 2nd term as Manheim Township Commissioner. And finally, the 2 other trivia questions I wanted to mention was, first of all, who was the first Democrat ever elected to the Manheim Township Board of Commissioners? And that is me. And the other one is, who was the last elected jury commissioner in Lancaster County? And that is my wife, Debbie. So having said all of that, again, my humble appreciation and thanks for this Lifetime Achievement Award. And again, I'm honored and touched by it. Thank you.
All right, folks, I hope this is working. All right, I am back. So I am here to talk to y'all, moving away from the awards. Congratulations again to DJ and Sam, who both well deserve their awards and more. So as Lauren mentioned, I'm one of the co-vice chairs of the county party. My name is Mary Walker Enders. And I wanted to talk to you really quickly about some things that you can do to help support the party and move your way toward maybe one of these wonderful awards in the future. So some of you might remember last summer, I put together a volunteer checklist. People found that very helpful. That is coming. We will do that again for the summer. In the meantime, I have a quick 1, 2, 3 set of actions that you can take to get involved. We have over 90 local Democrats running this year in our municipal election. That's the most in a really long time. We're very, very excited about it. We're very excited about all of them. So like I said, I'm going to give you a quick 1, 2, 3 set of actions that you can do this week while you're waiting for that great summer checklist to help our candidates and to help the party. So number 1, and Izzy is going to expand on this a little bit, but number 1 is to donate some money. So you can donate $5 or more. You can find a local candidate if you go to lancasterdems.com/vote. That has a list of all of our endorsed local candidates, broken down by school districts. So you just click the district that you're in and you can see all of the candidates there. Find one and give them some money, help them reach voters in this really critical year. You can also donate to LCDC. You can do that by going to lancasterdems.com/donate. I have myself a recurring donation to LCDC once a month. I just give $10. It's super easy. It comes out automatically. I don't even have to think about it. It's awesome. So that's a great way to help support the party. Action number 2, pick up a phone bank or lit drop shift. There are so many candidates running. All of them are doing actions. There's lots of ways that you can plug in, whether it's your district where someone is running or whether you live in an area where there aren't a lot of local candidates this year. There's still plenty of ways that you can get involved. Again, this is something I am doing. My dear friend Jessica Hale and I are going to try to lit drop for all of the candidates that are doing lit drops pre-primary. So we've done Hempfield and we've done E-Town so far. We're doing Warwick this week. And I encourage you to do the same thing. It's a nice, easy walk. You're not knocking doors. You're not actually talking to anybody. You're just hanging door hangers on doors. If you don't want to get out and do that, there's lots of phone banks for candidates. And there's also a phone bank that LCDC is sponsoring. We're partnering with Turn PA Blue, who was an excellent partner for a lot of our local campaigns in our party last year. We're partnering with them again this year. They are doing some ballot chase phone banking, and they're using an auto dialer. If you've never done that before, it's super easy. That is this Thursday, I think, the 28th of April. Watch for an email about that this week, and please sign up. It'll be really easy. Calling people that signed up to vote by mail to make sure that they get their ballots and turn them in. And our third action, so one is donate, two is pick up a shift and take an action. And our third is to get more deeply involved with LCDC. So you can do that in a lot of different ways. One, you can join a caucus. We have lots of caucuses now. We have a Black caucus, Latinx caucus, Young Dems, LGBTQ+, veterans. We're just about to start a women's caucus. We'll be talking more about that. So keep an eye on your email. Lots of ways that you can get involved there. You can also join a committee. I'm the chair of the organization committee. DJ runs communications and always needs lots of help. As you heard, he's doing a lot of things, need lots of people to help him. So if you're interested in joining a committee, you can go to our website, lancasterdems.com again, and see who all the committee chairs are and just shoot us an email and say, hey, I want to get involved, I want to help. Or you can get more deeply involved where you are. Join your district committee if you're not already a committee person. If you're not a committee person, you can't be for whatever reason, go to committee meetings and volunteer and take on a responsibility there. There's always lots of things to do, always lots of things that, tasks that you can take on. So we really appreciate your help. Thank you all for coming again today. And I hope that you this week take a minute to do all of those actions. Donate some money, pick up a shift, and then get more involved with LCDC. We would love to have you, and we're really excited to work with you. So I'm going to introduce my co-vice chair, Ismail Smith-Waddell, and he is going to talk a little bit more about giving money to LCDC. So there you go, Izzy.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Ismail Smith-Waddell. I have the honor of being co-vice chair of the Lancaster County Democratic Committee with Mary Auker-Enders, from whom you just heard. So if you look in the chat right now, you'll see a link that our man of the year, DJ Ramsay, has just posted there. That's lancasterdems.com/donate. Now, you're all smart, attractive, wonderful folks, and I'm sure that you already know how to click a donate link. But what I want to talk to you about for a moment is really, the year that I got involved with the local party was 2016. And though, of course, Sam had already had his first record-breaking win, the narrative that we had was that Democrats really only play in Lancaster City. And since then, this party has seen itself represented in Manheim Township, in East Petersburg, great candidates running in Elizabethtown, in Paradise, every inch of Lancaster County, because that's who we are. We represent the best interest of the 500,000 Lancastrians who reside in this county. We don't just do it for members of our party. We do it for every person that lives in this community and in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I get the sense that that's why you're on this call too. You're here because you care about the values of good government, of equity, of justice, of people paying their fair share for a society that we can all live in. Now, it may seem difficult and distant. You might not ever imagine yourself running an election or running a campaign for office. But like Mary said, you can get involved and you can help a candidate that you know and love and support win. And you can do that today. Now, we're always raising money because money is one of the big things that helps us win election. And I know that on this call right now, we have 70 participants. So What I'm looking for is this. I want to see 20 Democrats set up new $10 monthly donations. Now, you can give 25, 50, 100, 200 right now if you like, and of course we appreciate that, but the work of our party, movement work, and the work of turning Lancaster County blue is long-term work. So we're looking for your long-term support. We want you to be part of this as we win elections this year, next year, and the year after that. So if you would just please do me the honor of going to lancasterdems.com/donate, as again, our man of the year, DJ, has put in the chat, and sign up for a $10 monthly donation. Let me tell you real quick what you're doing. You are transforming Lancaster County from a county in which Democrats don't play, from a county in which we are the underdogs, to a county in which we run the table for the benefit of all 500,000 of our residents. So if you believe in working families, if you believe in women's rights, if you believe in equity for people of color and rights for LGBTQ folks, if you believe in rich folks paying their fair share and our teachers and students getting the support that they deserve, go to lancasterdems.com/donate right now and help us out. We really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out, of course, to Sam Mecum and the entire Lancaster County Democratic Committee. As you know, the Lifetime Achievement Award is named after my mother, who I will also casually mention was a regular and constant donor and volunteer for the Lancaster County Democratic Committee. So if you'd like to follow in her footsteps one more time, you can take any of Mary's suggestions and you can go to lancasterdems.com/donate. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day. I think next up we have Lauren Schlesser to bring us home.
Thank you, Izzy, for that very good speech. I'm always amazed at your ability to ask for money. It's so great. Anyway, we are at the end of our program. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today to help us honor the folks who put in so much work and, just get out there every day and do it. And so we're going to go into our question and answer session now. And so for those of you who aren't interested in staying for that, at this point, you can drop off the call, but we're going to move into the question and answer. And then Izzy's going to read the questions that have been submitted for Brian.
Let's do it.
Hey.
How's it going?
First and foremost, while I'm waiting for the questions to be delivered to me, I want to thank you, Brian, for really bringing it home that building a relationship and that earning these democratic victories is both an art and a science. We appreciate you taking the time out on a Sunday afternoon to talk to us.
Please, I'm super excited to be here. I also failed to mention, I am based in New York now, but I grew up in Claremont County in Ohio. I'm a Buckeye, not a New Yorker. And so I'm just down the road from y'all. So I appreciate being invited to participate today.
Nice. Well, we appreciate having you. Real quick, before we get into the question and answer, I'll just point out that 4 folks have just signed up for recurring donations in the about 2 minutes. So I'm hoping that others will keep up and continue to do so. That's how we get the work done. Brian, again, thank you for being here. I'm going to go straight to our first question. As I mentioned, the work that we're doing is movement work. The kind of change that we want actually takes a lot of time. And so Lauren Edgell asks, how do we keep volunteers from burning out in a never-ending election cycle?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I think that this kind of goes back to relationships, again, kind of the answer to everything here. As Lauren was mentioning, if people feel a deep connection, not just to the work, but also to the people, that they're doing that work with, if we're able through our volunteer opportunities to help form genuine friendships between people, I think that that is one way that genuinely helps, because it no longer becomes a burden or taxing to go to a phone bank or to go walk and do a lit drop with someone, but it's actually sort of invigorating. It's a meaningful interaction for somebody, and they're getting a connection out of that as well. The second piece that I would say in terms of like the burnout, because I definitely hear a lot about this, especially on Instagram, where people are just like, oh, I'm just exhausted by the whole thing, and it feels like you're running in circles, is to try to talk to people about a longer term frame of reference, that the actions that we take are important to elect this individual, such and such a person, but that the change that we're trying to implement in this country is a much grander plan. I think that a lot of people, especially if they're new to politics, especially if they're one of these people who was activated by 2016, think that what we need is one really great big wave election, everybody comes out to vote, and then we'll fix it. And that's not the way that our government is set up. That's not the way that politics works. And so it will never, no matter what turnout gets to, it will never be done in an election cycle. And so I think changing that frame of reference for people to think, oh, like this is something that I do because it's in my values, and it will always be in my values, so it will always be something that I do, is key to avoiding the burnout.
That's really smart, Brian. Thank you. If you don't mind, I want to dig in just a little more. And so that makes sense from a perspective of how it is that we talk to people as perhaps as managers, as volunteer coordinators or campaign managers. How do we most effectively cycle people in and out of the work when they do need to rest? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think that a lot, like logistically for me, it's about calendaring. I literally calendar my volunteers. I'm a campaign manager at the moment, as well as a consultant. And so on my local race that I'm running, I calendar my volunteers for check-ins. They don't know it, but they're on my calendar on a repeating cycle to just like literally text them and be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? So that I'm not only texting them with an ask that says, hey, can you sign up for this shift? And so I try to keep tabs on people that way. Someone was just in London for a couple of weeks. By checking in with them, I knew that. So I knew not to be bugging them at that time, and then welcomed them back and said, hey, like, let's catch up. Would love to get you back involved. So I don't know that that's really groundbreaking of a tip, but I will say that maintaining that connection with them, if the only time you're texting somebody or reaching out to them is with an ask, I think that you're going to be pushing on burnout pretty quickly.
That's really good advice, Brian. Thank you so much. All right, I have another question here from Carl Feldman. So Carl's concerned about, especially with the challenges that we've seen this year with COVID-19 and with other technological factors, direct voter contact is becoming more and more challenging and more limited. What's your broad view on how campaigns can overcome that hurdle?
Yes, as I mentioned, I think that this is a huge problem that we're going to face forever at this point. I don't think that there will be an end-all be-all solution for cutting through the noise to people. We live in a very noisy culture and environment right now. I do think that relational organizing is the future of organizing. And so the tools that I was pointing to are the current iteration of that. But I think that we're going to see evolutions in how relational organizing is done. And these platforms are going to continue to sort of evolve to meet the moment. At the end of the day, it's important to remember that there will never be a better tool than someone you know reaching out to you to ask you to go vote or to ask you to get involved. How that communication happens can change. and will continue to evolve. But I think that a lot of campaigns are getting really creative, using video. Obviously, Zoom has totally transformed how we communicate with people. I think that we could definitely see additional changes along that same vein, but it's going to be an ongoing challenge for sure. I don't know if in Lancaster you've implemented a vote tripling program. I don't know if anybody uses that, but I know that that's been growing in popularity. The idea being that somebody signs up to be a vote tripler, they are responsible for 3 individuals to turn out. Then you have like a vote captain who is responsible for 10 vote triplers. A vote general is what we were calling it on another campaign, is responsible for vote captains. And so building more infrastructure into relational organizing and building that accountability piece there is going to be really critical, especially as people improve their ability to screen calls and texts.
I like that, Brian. And I like what you said specifically about building an infrastructure, because I think, you know, a lot of us have experience with relational organizing, either formally or informally. And I think that there's sort of a trap. I think that often we're resistant to structure it too much, I think, because then we get into that feeling of inauthentic. But I also really valued what you said answering the previous question about consistent communication. So to follow up with what you just said, Brian, how do we and can we use relational organizing to overcome increased partisanship that we're facing, right? Like if it is most effective to be encouraged by someone you know and have a relationship with, and fewer Democrats and Republicans have relationships across the aisle that are significant, how do we overcome that?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question that I think I'd be extremely wealthy if I had a really good answer to, or powerful. I would be somewhere, somebody. But my personal opinion is that the polarization that we're seeing right now is not a phase or an anomaly, but it's really a logical conclusion to the professionalization of our campaign industry. As the profession of campaigning has become more sophisticated, consultants, national consultants have become the norm, running races literally in jurisdictions from coast to coast. You are seeing the heat turned up in our campaign politics and what the rhetoric sounds like and looks like. I think that that's kind of an inevitability to a certain extent. People can definitely disagree with that, but I do think that any solution has to address money in politics, for one, which I know might not seem like the most immediate connection, but if you look at Senate races 10 years ago, we're raising, I don't have the number in front of me, I think around $2 to $6 million on average. And now the average competitive Senate race last cycle was $150 million for the two. So $75 million each, sorry. And so I think that the explosion of money in politics over the last decade has exacerbated the issue of partisanship, because people's voices are a lot louder and they are being channeled in different ways than they were having people come to a campaign office and make phone calls prior to that. The direction that we're headed right now, I mean, Pennsylvania, everyone on this call definitely knows it. The things going on in the state legislature there are really disconcerting. And I guess the second, as I'm saying this, the second piece of this. So one, I'm going to say money in politics. Two, I'm going to say diversifying our state legislatures. Our state legislatures right now, Republicans in state legislatures, they have a trifecta in 23 states. are the most extreme Republicans out there. They're much farther to the right on average than federal or statewide Republicans. And over the last few years, some states have, like Arizona, have become more diverse at the state legislative level, but a lot of states have become more white and more male as Republicans have taken over because of gerrymandered districts in 2010. So diversifying racially, in terms of gender, in terms of religion, making our state legislatures look like America has to be a priority for Democrats if we are going to make these bodies somewhere where compromise can happen, where we are setting the tone for our legislative agenda as being one of working for the people, of centering the needs of the state and working on for progress. We have to be focused down ballot, looking at those races and electing Democrats, of course, but people who actually reflect the values and experiences of people across the state.
Brian, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Are you looking at my questions because you are perfectly teeing up the next question every time?
I'm not. I am not. Absolutely not. But I'm ready for it. Bring it on.
So that is a perfect segue. So we have another question from one of our perennial campaign managers and sort of minivan administrators here in the Lancaster County Democratic Committee, and it's this. Since you've played a number of roles, how do we get state parties, these sort of large political organizations with the big view, to transition from this kind of 4-year floodgate in terms of investment to regular staggered investments in building competent local parties and letting them deliver the municipal and state rep gains that are going to turn the states over for us ultimately?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a huge problem. So in 2020, the RNC raised like double what the DNC raised because of the way Trump structured his fundraising. It was almost $1 billion pushed into the RNC, and the RNC is giving that money to state parties at a much higher rate than the DNC is giving money to state parties. I see state parties and entities like LCDC as the missing piece in Democrats' plan right now, is that we are really underinvesting in the infrastructure that is permanent, that will exist there to build community. Everything we're talking about today is about fostering relationships. You cannot foster and capitalize on a relationship in the 7-8 months of a campaign. It doesn't work that way. And so being able to have those tie-ins to the local community all the time is vital and has to be work that we prioritize and work that we fund. It's a good question how I'm very hopeful. I will say Jamie Harrison as the head of the DNC is a huge step forward. I really think that he's going to prioritize state parties. He said that he will. He's rolling out plans to do that. But I think that it's also an issue on the grassroots side that we as organizers, as campaigners, and candidates have to also be facilitating a connection from our supporters to state parties, to the Democratic Party and infrastructure and ideology, which I don't think is happening very well right now. A lot of candidates are trying to distance themselves from these parties, from entities and clubs and things. If even a fraction of the money that was donated to Amy McGrath and Jamie Harrison in 2020 was given to state legislative seats, we could have seen a totally different outcome in many states. And I think that that's connected slightly, not exactly addressing what you're talking about here, but I do think that it's the grassroots issue as well, of we need to convince people who support these candidates that a one-time donation to Amy McGrath because you hate Mitch McConnell is actually not the best way to run Mitch McConnell out of power, and is not the best way to enact your policy agenda, your values in government, and that being connected to their state party, to a county committee, to a local Democratic club is a better way of doing that. And it also feeds back into the question that we were talking about partisanship. If you make things, the more national things become, the higher the temperature of the political conversation and the less productive it is, because you're tackling issues that are not readily addressed using the mechanisms that you have access to. Localizing politics cools the temperature down in many situations, not all, but in many situations, localizing politics makes it more about relationships. It makes it more concrete for people, and will also sort of address the underinvestment that we're talking about here. Did that answer your question?
You know what, it does, Brian.
The question, sorry.
No, it's good. And it answers it in a way that I think raises a few more questions, but I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world. Like you said, if these were questions that we had like dedicated answers to, right? So we're coming up on, I have 3:17, and I think we're wrapping up shortly here. So Brian, I would love to give the last word. I would love to give the last word to you. You've shared a lot of wisdom, I think. And I think, frankly, that it's impressive. What I'm really appreciating about this generation, our generation. Brian, how old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay, I'm 31. Great, we can be in the same generation. That's fine.
Yes.
I am blown away locally and nationally by the level of energy and experience that we are seeing from our young folks, and the ability to integrate into a party structure with work that is lifetimes long. So I just want to say I appreciate that in you, and thank you. And yeah, what is the one thing you want Lancaster County Democratic Committee members and our guests, our contributors, our supporters to know as we wrap up today?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. And thank you to DJ, and congratulations to Sam. I'm really so honored to be here, and it's been such a pleasure. I completely agree with you. The energy is transformational. I think that we're on a one-way trip right now to a more active and engaged electorate that I don't see being rolled back anytime soon. For one thing, for people to take away, I think is probably that the work that y'all are doing is the work that is the missing puzzle piece between where we are and where we need to be. So if I can impart anything to attendees today, it's that my gratitude for the thankless work that you are doing in places that do not get the spotlight from the national media, from the Democratic Party, from anybody. But is the exact work that day in and day out will improve people's lives, and also long-term build the kind of country that we all want to see. So my one thing to impart is gratitude, and with that gratitude, a request to not stop, to dig deeper and to do even more. Because the more that we're able to do now, the more impactful our work will be moving forward. And so I think that for the next 3 weeks, I know it'll be all hands on deck there. I'm excited to watch and participate. I will definitely be joining as well. I have the Mobilize link here. So I'm super grateful again for all of your time and attention. And I hope to see you all on Zoom again very soon.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really just a stellar presentation earlier and a conversation just now that I'm really grateful for. Everyone, just want to remind you of the 3 options that Mary laid out for you. You can donate. That's lancasterdems.com/donate. You can volunteer to pick up a phone bank shift, go canvassing, do a lit drop, and you can, as Brian so energetically mentioned, get involved with your local parties because we're standing in the gap doing the work. Get involved with the county party and with your district committee, and we'll bring this thing home this year and 10 years from now together. Thank you again, Brian.
Thank you so much.